Well, let's get started. Today's demo is going to be in outdoor finishes. And outdoor finishes start with what you're going to finish. In this particular case, this is a footstool for an adirondack chair, and we're not going to actually finish this, but to give you an idea of what you're up against. Finish depends on a good outdoor wood. Light woods like cypress, there are three big ones. Redwood, western red cedar, and cypress. Those are fantastic outdoor woods that are very lightweight, easy to pick up, easy to move around. And in the day and time, more expensive than most people would like, but still excellent outdoor woods. The heavier woods, the three biggies for outside are a teak, mahogany, or actually white oak. As long as a white oak is not in ground contact, it's up on a deck, it's up on a porch or something like that, and you've got a exterior finish on it, white oak will last a good long while. It's a good outdoor wood. It's not as good as mahogany and teak. Those are the biggies. Now, could you use any wood outside? Yeah, kinda, but you want a wood that's either extremely light, like the cypress or the western red cedar or the redwood, because it just the way the wood reacts, bugs aren't particularly fond of it, so you don't have the borers that you do in most normal woods. That's one of the big reasons they do so well. The mahogany, the teak is a lot of silica. The teak tree itself pulls a lot of silicon out of the soil, which is rock. So that's why they dull tools so quickly. That's why they're so good. They use mahogany and teak, especially teak is used on boats, and especially decking, because it doesn't really wear because of the rock in it. It's heavy it's not, and it's very expensive, but it's an outstanding outdoor wood. Now, to get the finish on the wood, you'll find out that most outdoor furniture has got these little tiny slats in it, okay? And we don't want and then attach everything together, because if we use glue or some type of adhesive, it needs to be bare wood to bare wood. Also, if we want to make little plugs to cover screw holes, attaching it to the wood. So most times our project is already completed. Now it comes time to finish it. You can spray outdoor finishes. You can use a brush. You can use a foam brush. You can use a rag. But if I want to get in between these slots right here, there's nothing better than a bristle brush, because that just comes right down in here. It does a great job. If I spray it, I'll get a little bit of product in here, but I'll get a lot more product on these edges, and you get a lot of runs and drips. If you're wasting your stuff, and then you have to take care of the runs and drips. Rags won't fit in there. Foam brushes don't do particularly well in there, but a bristle brush can be natural, can be synthetic, we don't care. That is the best application tool to get in here, and you can do the whole thing with the brush. That being said, what are our choices? What constitutes an outdoor finish? The finish has two things that an indoor finish won't have. First, it's going to have UV filters to block UV light from hitting the wood. It filters it out very well, because UV wood causes the aging, which causes the damage to wood over time. If you're using a film finish, and a film finish is a finish, if my hand is the wood, the film finish sits on top, doesn't go in. And the UV light will destroy that adhesion layer between the wood and the finish, causing it to flake. Another thing an outdoor finish is what we call a soft finish. And not soft to the touch like a pillow. Soft because outdoor wood expands and contracts a great deal. These finishes can expand and contract with the wood without splitting. Interior finishes can't do that. That's why when you put an interior finish on something, put it outside, it doesn't last 6 months before it's popping and crackling and peeling, because as that wood expands and contracts, it can't keep up. So these are what you want. Now you'll see this product here. This is Odie's oil. This is your oil. This is an inside-outside finish. Another outside finish that you could use is exterior paint. But when mostly we talk about finishes, we're talking about transparent finishes that you can see through so you can see the wood. This is a piece of canary wood. It's a beautiful piece of wood. We can use this outside. That's not a big deal. Won't be as long lasting outside as those other woods I talked about earlier. But you can use walnut, you can use maples, you can use all those woods. It's just that there are better exterior woods than those, but that doesn't mean these can't be used for exteriors, especially if they're on a deck or on a porch. So the two basic finishes we've got are an oil finish and a film finish. They both work equally well. This is nice because it cleans up with water, soap and water. This is nice because it's very easy to use and it's very easy to fix, because this is going to be absorbed in the wood to harden. So with this, every year or two you can go out, you can put a little bit more on to rejuvenate the finish and keep on going. This one, especially since it's got a urethane resin, holds up to abuse much better than this will. This, you've got to take the old finish off if you're going to refinish it. This one, you just you take sandpaper and sand more oil in, wipe up all the excess, and you rejuvenated it. So much easier to fix. Film finish. Some people like this because they think it lasts longer if you take care of your finishes. But this one, once it's on, that's it. There's nothing else you can do with it except take it off. This one I can use waxes if I want to. Now waxes don't last for spit outside, but you can use waxes on an oil finish to make it more luxurious. Both are excellent products. Both will serve you in good stead. Opening up, an oil finish is oil, and with some different products in it, it's nice and clean. Any finish we want to stir. So even when we can look down and say, boy, that looks good, I can see the bottom. Stir it anyway. And what we want to do is just stir the finish slowly. If you've ever been baking and you've tried to fold a meringue into something, you just take your time and just fold it. You don't want to whisk it really fast because that generates bubbles, and bubbles are our enemy. So let's take our little brush here and we'll use the oil first. Now the oil is going to go into the wood and harden. So oil finishes are those finishes where we just want to pretend we oiled the oil factory. Now I'm brushing, I'm not doing a lot of back and forth motions. I'm just doing straight down the grain. Back and forth doesn't give you a good distribution. And now we got everything with the grain. Now we're going to let this sit for 5 minutes by the clock. And what I mean by that, if the wood can take more oil within 5 minutes, it will. If I look back 5 minutes from now, it looks dry, I'm going to put more oil on. And I'm going to do that until after 5 minutes. One time, it doesn't look dry anymore, it's still wet. Then you're going to take a towel, you're going to wipe everything, all the excess off, because with oils, what doesn't go into the wood won't harden. So if you put too much on and it can't go inside, instead of a nice finish, you're going to have a sticky, gooey mess. If you've ever put an oil finish on went great the first coat, the second coat turned into a sticky gooey mess. It's because the second coat can't get in the wood to harden. You've sealed the wood with the. So in oil finish, everything is about the first coat. So we're going to put that on there and let that work. This is a film finish. Completely different animal. This is various resins and things. This is water-based. This one needs to be stirred also. Again, this one looks like milk. So it's going to dry crystal clear, but it looks like milk. If you ever got one of these finishes and it didn't look like milk, it's old. And again, we're going to stir nice and smooth. And with this one, I can feel the stuff on the bottom. You can see it on the bottom of the stick. So we just want to turn this, stir this smoothly. We don't want to shake it, so that's going to generate bubbles, because this is a film finish. This isn't going to go away. This is going to stay on top. That goes into the wood. It can't have bubbles. It goes into the wood. This can have bubbles all day long. So this one, we just want to take our time. And how do you know when you're done? When the bottom of our stick is fairly clear. So there's no time limit. It's not like stir it for 2 minutes or 3 minutes. It just keeps stirring and stir it slowly, just like this. I've got it running over the bottom of the can because that's where everything's going to settle. And see, it's much less thick on the bottom now. So we'll just give it a couple more minutes. Well, a couple more stirs actually. This is a water-based finish. So if you haven't raised the grain on the wood, it's going to raise the grain for you. And that's okay. When this raises the grain, anytime you're using a finish like this, you're going to sand between coats. So you're going to raise the grain on the first coat. This is going to harden everything in the raised position. When you sand it, it's going to knock it flat. So your second and subsequent coats are going to look gorgeous. Now, this is a 3-coat process normally, but we're just going to get the first coat down. And again, try to take it all in one direction. Go with the grain. When you go cross grain, the bristles dragging across the little valleys in the cross grain are what generates bubbles. Now when you do this the first time, you can see streaks from the brush. That's okay. Because remember, we said we're going to raise the grain and we're also going to sand this. And there we go. That's good. What's the difference? How come this didn't change color and this did?
Natural oil wood.
No. This has been sanded. Okay?
Oh.
The oils, when we cover the oil, that oil smothered everything. When we put this water-based, water's a solvent. As we go through, it's picking up any dust we didn't take off with the rag, and it's coming here. Okay? So what does this tell us? It tells us that if we're going to use a water-based finish, interior or exterior, what we want to do is, before you actually do the first coat, I like to take water, not dripping rag, dampen it, scrub it really well. You get all this dust up because the water pulls it up. It's also going to raise the grain. Lightly sand it, and then you put on your normal coats, and then you won't get this, you'll just get this. But this is something, it's great to show people this, because this is the same piece of wood, and yet this stitch and that didn't pull up, that did. Oil, water. Water's a solvent, and water will get the stuff out of the nooks and crannies. Okay. So, once you're done with these things, we always want to seal them again. Once you open a finish, take a black magic marker, put the date on the top. Okay? 2 years from that date, even if you've never opened that can again, get rid of the finish. Because it's breaking down in the can. And it won't. Yes, it's easy. Rule of thumb, everything. I call it Rick's rule of 2 years. Don't put a cheap finish on it. And a cheap finish is something that's really old and dusty like that. So, looking at this oil finish, it's been a couple minutes. Actually, it's been 10 minutes. And some areas are dry, but other areas are still wet. So I'm going to take the excess oil off just by wiping it like that. Now we've got this oily rag. If we crinkle it up and throw it in a trash can, it could catch fire. So what we're going to do is we're going to treat it like a piece of laundry, and we're just going to drape it over the edge, just like that. Then the next day when we come in and it's hard like cardboard, throw it away normally. Okay? But you never want to take oily rags, oily paper. It applies to steel wool too. Anything that's oil on it, you want it to either air with a lot of things and not pack together, or you want to put them in a special container that's just designed for that, that's got water or whatever sealing in, something like that. But just don't crinkle it up and throw it in your trash can. Most wood shops are burned down because of spontaneous combustion in the trash from finishes. And it applies to oil finishes. Now, this has got to dry, and it's going to take a time, but we can look at this and kind of see the difference. Okay? Why are we getting this difference? It's the same piece of wood, therefore it's the same color. This is into the wood, which means a surface of wood, even though we get really smooth to the touch, if we had a really good vision, we'd see mountains and valleys. And when the light hits that, it scatters it so it gets much more satiny. This is covered with liquid. The liquid has filled the valleys, and it's over top of the mountain, so this is a much flatter surface that we can get sanding because the liquid has made the surface flat. So that's why this is shinier. And the color is a little different because we've got a little lens now of clear that's over that. That's affecting how we see the wood, how the light's going in and how it's bouncing out. An oil finish will give you a much truer representation of the colors with one exception. An oil finish amber to the color. So if it's a dark wood like walnut, it'll make it look nicer. Okay? Which one of these looks more amber to you? And you can see it. This one. So it's not only a question of the light bouncing off, it's also a question of, do these finishes add any color? A water-based finish adds no color whatsoever. It dries completely, totally clear. Now we've highlighted this color because we've got a film over top of it that's filling up all of those voids and making this shinier in appearance. Now this is only a semi-gloss. Semi-gloss is a product that they added little granules, visual dispersion agents in here to make the light scatter. This, when you make it normally, it's high gloss right out of the can. And to make it semi-gloss, satin, flat, they add more of those dispersion agents to scatter the light so it looks duller. Okay? I like the oil color. I like the amber. Amber is a warmer color. Amber is also the wavelength of light we are most sensitive to. We can see the best. For lighter woods, it's nice. It's okay. For darker woods, walnut, wenge, any of the Brazilian cherry, any for darker woods, I think look better naturally with the oil. So as far as heat goes, the sunlight's going to heat them all up.
Okay.
Now, wood itself is going to handle that temperature, and it's going to move the temperature from the front to the back. So it's not going to be like metal where you're going to jump back up and yell and scream. Wood just go, oh man, this is warm. But wood handles temperature much better than metal handles. If it gets just too hot, the wood catches fire. That's way over 400 degrees. Any questions about any of these? The biggest thing I guess I need to tell you about is that it's not hard to use these. These are easy finishes, but they have to be exterior. And once you crack that lid, you're running the clock. The finish that we have is designed for continuous underwater exposure. You can't put a finish on the bottom of a canoe and keep it underwater. I keep it in the water forever. The finish will break down. So the beautiful canoe up there, it's not in the water, so the finish looks great. You can put in the water, you can paddle around. When you get to where you're going, you take it out of the water. But these will hold up. Of all of these things, probably the best one is anything that has the word marine. If it says marine on it, this finish was designed to use for wood on boats. The top of the boats, but boats. So it's got to say marine. This is a regular varnish. This is a tung oil combination. Tung oil botulinum, but it's also got some phenolic resin in it. The resin is what makes this a marine grade finish. Resins aren't absorbed into the wood. They're going to lay on the surface. So this is actually a combination of oil and film.
Would you recommend that?
This is excellent. If I'm doing anything on a boat or anything like the furniture, the side of the pool, that's getting a lot of splash, a lot of wet exposure off and on, rain, all that good stuff. These are the best outdoor finish, the strongest outdoor finishes you can get here. Are they always necessary? No. If you get a back deck with umbrella or a back porch, many of these others are fine. But for really harsh conditions, you want the word marine to be on the label. Outdoor or exterior is all you need. Now the Odie's, this is what we call a hard wax. The only hard wax finish I'm aware of that's inside or outside. And so if you wanted a hard wax finish is a little bit softer than varnish, but it's harder than a normal like an oil finish. Oil finish hardens in the wood, but it's in the wood. The wood is giving to it. This is no structure. What you do with this one is every year I'll go out there and get some sandpaper and sanding block, pour a little oil on the piece and sand the oil in. Now when you sand the oil in, you're scratching the surface, you're exposing new wood, the oil's going into the wood. Do the whole thing, but this time you've got to wipe everything up really well because what's laying on the surface can't get in. So you wipe that up because otherwise that's going to. And I do that every year. Every spring I'll get out there, I'll clean off her bench, wash it off, do this, put a little bit more on, sand it in, and it looks gorgeous. It's been outside for 5 years now, and it looks spectacular. And it's made out of cypress, so it's up off the ground, it's on the deck. She does her plants in it, it's great. On the ground, next is a redwood, they're expensive, a redwood potting bench I made her 15 years ago. It's got no finish, it's sitting on the ground, and it's still there. So what you're going to pick for an outside anything depends really. The wood is a really good key, and then the finish is a really good key. Between the two to go. Stains, normally I don't like to stain an outside project. If you do get a stain, make sure it's an exterior stain. An exterior stain is always a pigment stain. Dye fades quickly. So you use an exterior stain, it's a pigment's colored dirt. It won't fade, it'll retain its color forever. But since it's composed of colored dirt and a glue to hold the dirt to the wood, UV light will break the glue down and cause the stain to start flaking when the finish starts to flake. So if you're going to use a stain, something outside, it's got to be an outside stain.